Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and.
Back from the dead. Adam.
Hello, Adam.
Hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. It's a little bit weak and a little bit scratchy still
Okay.
after my week-long battle with viral pharyngitis, which is just
hmm
doctor speak for sore throat that isn't caused by bacteria.
Okay.
and so yes, I think I have enough voice in me to last for one episode of WSRTwPA.
Well, let's be efficient with our time, and so
Absolutely.
make sure you keep your voice. So, listeners, new year, same us. Hopefully, we're a little wiser after coming through 2020. And if you would like to share your thoughts with us about what we're talking about or anything else, please reach out on Facebook and Instagram at WSRTwPA and on YouTube.
WSRTwPA.
Yes. And on YouTube by the title. We should have recorded that with Phil and Adam. I last time we were on, I forgot to mention that we did have a comment um on our Christmas episode. Miss
Oh,
Eve,
excellent.
Miss Yvonne Matthews, she shared that episode and she was like, "Everybody, you should check this out." And so, thank you, Miss Matthews, and I hope you enjoyed
Hmm.
that. And maybe we'll have you back, and you can share some of your favorite Christmas hymns
Oh,
and
that's a
memories
great
of
idea.
Christmas.
Yeah, yeah. We love Yvonne.
Yes, love Miss Matthews. All right. Do you have any comments, Adam?
I don't. I'm excited. Nah, that's not the right word. I am eager. That's not the right word either. I anticipate
You
this
anticipate?
conversation, a continuation of last week's, with another week of history under our belts,
Yes.
um, and with me being able to contribute verbally this
hmm
week rather than via the text box only, which is really not a medium that translates well to podcast.
Not really. I mean, if you could hear if you can, but you had your microphone muted, so you wouldn't couldn't really hear the clicking of your keyboard. So,
Yes, my favorite part, though I don't want to get off topic, but just one off topic comment if you'll
uh
hear
huh.
me. My favorite part is that before you before you said what I had typed, so you would read it yourself first,
Uh huh.
which was terrific podcast content. Wow, especially without the visual. If you're just listening to the audio version of the podcast, it's
Uh huh.
amazing to have like those 8 seconds of silence, and then Adam says,
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it keeps the just makes for very great pacing, right? But um.
so, dear audience, I ask your forgiveness for being sick last week for the first episode of 2021. I'm glad to be back with you all.
Yeah, so like you said, we want to kind of continue our conversation. So I mean, maybe Adam, you wasn't able to really share your thoughts last week, so maybe you could start and just share your
Well,
thoughts.
I don't want to just regurgitate your conversation with Eric
Okay.
in our last episode, but I do. I mean, I I want to think about where we go from here. How do we as individuals and how do we as a nation move forward?
Mm.
I don't think that is going to be an easy task. Actually, I think it's a rather monumental task, and I mean, I wish him all the best, but I honestly, I just don't have any great deal of confidence that Joe Biden and is going to be able to do that because I think that the fissures in American society are deeper than they've ever been.
Mm,
Um, I mean, certainly in my lifetime, uh, I think my parents and probably even grandparents would say, even in theirs.
mm,
So um, the the division is so acute um, that it's going to require, Lincoln-esque leadership to heal. And I mean, I hope Joe Biden is the guy for the job since he's the guy in the job.
right.
But I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, how do we heal as a nation? Um, as I was gathering my thoughts on that question, I'm gonna offer one right off the bat, and then
Mm-hmm.
let you take it from there, Phil. But the first is I want the whataboutism to stop.
Mm,
This is what the rhetoricians call tu quoque. It is just cannot. Okay, so um, let me put this in more human terms rather than political terms. Whataboutism has become this political term, right?
mm-hmm.
So let me just put it in human terms. If you thought it was wrong when the other side did it, you shouldn't be doing it now. If you thought it was wrong when the other side did it, that does not justify you doing it now. You
Mm,
don't get to take an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That is antithetical to being a good Christian, that is antithetical to the gospel, that is antithetical to following Christ's model of behavior, and it is antithetical to being a responsible citizen of the United States, no matter what your faith is. Okay. Phil, what do you think?
well, yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a very kindergarten statement. You know what I mean? We,
But
as
we
a,
need to make it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we need our leaders
yeah,
to say it. Like,
yeah.
I. Go. I'm sorry. I'm not going to interrupt you. I want
No,
you.
no,
I want
no.
you to talk.
No, no, I agree with you. I think it's so sad that we really do have to say that.
Mm-hmm.
That we really do have to say that. Does it just because someone else did that? Did it make it okay? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
did it make? Does it make it okay? And
Exactly.
no, the answer is no. The answer is
Yes.
no.
Yes. Let me say. Let me. Um. Let me say this also. Okay. The media's bias does not give you license to do evil either.
Mm,
Okay, that the let's say the other side in your eyes does evil.
mm-hmm.
That does
Mm-hmm.
not give you license to do evil yourself. Two wrongs have never made a right. Likewise, let's say if in your opinion the media is giving the other side a pass and then is being critical to you, all right. Well, guess what? The media could be wrong about giving the other side a pass and still be right about how heinous the behavior of your side is.
Right. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I don't know. So, anyway, that's my second point. Media bias does not does not give you license to do bad things.
But I just I mean I think I'm rubbing my head because it just really gives me headache because it really when I look at it I think it is they really are just you're just looking for an excuse. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it's like that as a teacher. Like that's what I would be saying to
Hmm.
them. You
Yes.
know, yeah.
Yes.
I don't need to. I don't need to keep repeating myself. You know, but you're looking for an excuse to do what you want to do, and I mean, and that is our sinful nature. But you are looking for an excuse to do it. But this is not an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Point three on my list. And only four. Unless I
Okay.
think of something off the. But point three on my list is um, that we need, as a society, to recommit ourselves to the facts,
Mm.
to truth. Um, and you, I think this is probably actually the most difficult one.
Mm.
I think this path forward of recommitment to facts and the truth. Uh, it is so difficult. Um, I back in 2015, or I guess it was 2016, the election year, because in 2015 everyone thought that Donald Trump was a joke, right, and that he would
Yeah.
never win the
Mm.
nomination of the Republican Party.
So long ago.
It was so long ago. Then in 2016 he started winning primaries,
Right.
uh, and uh, Donald Trump is not uh, known exactly for his strict adherence to the facts.
Mm.
I mean, the Washington Post again. Point number two: media bias does not mean that they're always wrong. The Washington Post has documented 30,000 public lies since Donald Trump began his career as a politician. 30,000. You name it up. There have not been 30,000 days. That is like many, many lies every day.
Mm.
Um, so, and I remember back in 2016, it was actually Phil was someone I had this conversation with. It was with Dr. Dahman, your former voice teacher, and
Mm.
I had the conversation. And he's like a very he's got his head on straight, Dr. Dahman. He's not a crazy radical liberal or a crazy radical right winger. Like he's just like a thinker, and I might disagree with him, and he might disagree with me, but like he's a thoughtful man,
Mm.
and so I didn't have any fear of saying this, even though I didn't know where he stood, because I knew that we could have a reasonable discussion about it. I said to
Mm.
him, you know what? All of the academics, all of the intellectuals of the past 40 years who now are tearing their hair out because Donald Trump could be the president of the United States have themselves to blame for their adherence to postmodernism and preaching to the culture that there's no such thing as truth.
Mm. Mm.
Because Donald Trump exploited that teaching to
Mm.
his own political gain, which was antithetical to what all of those, liberal elites would have ascribed to.
Mm.
So I just like, let's acknowledge as a society that there is always truth.
Mm.
There is always truth. There will be opinion and there will be facts. And we can disagree on our opinions. We can disagree vehemently on our opinions. But when our opinions are based on a completely divergent set of so called facts, we're doomed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the I was talking with someone. I was talking with a gentleman the other day, and he is someone who is actually a Trump supporter, and by his own admission, he does believe a lot of the things that are going on. And I said to him, like this is why character is important,
Mm-hmm.
because what you're saying is that we have to be committed to telling the truth, or at least believing the evidence. Because I mean, there have been so many people have said this election was not rigged. There was no fraud. Are the the errors that were committed were minuscule. And when they
Hmm.
recounted Georgia's votes, I think Biden actually gained like 2,000, I think, or something like that. I know at least in one of the states that were very close, Biden gained 2,000 votes when they went back because they
Hmm.
realized people made error. And
Hmm.
that is good. That's what the process is there for. You recount to make sure to try to catch the errors you didn't catch the first time.
Right. Right.
But this is why character is so important because then you're committed to truth and saying
Yes.
I my what I wanted is not more important than reality.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. A commitment. Maybe that's what we should say. A commitment to reality. Let's recommit to the one singular reality, and let's stop living in two different realities.
Yes, yes. I think we need to do that. I think we need to do that.
If we're going to heal as a nation, we need to be, you know, the United States of America. And we, again, like I said, the United States, since its founding, has been based on vigorous debate, right?
Mm.
It hasn't been
Yes.
united opinions,
No.
but we have to be united on like just the facts of the world. You know, like the speed of light is non-negotiable. The speed of sound is non-negotiable. The temperature that water boils is non-negotiable. Joe Biden won the election. It's non-negotiable.
but I think the thing is, and I just really felt like, and I think it's the naivete and maybe even arrogance of our age to say we have more science, we have a greater body of knowledge, and yet we are still talking about the importance of believing truth. Um,
Yes.
and I think like you're saying about liberals, or I mean you didn't say liberals, but academics. Yeah, about certain academics and their postmodernism, and how they really laid the bed, stirred the ground with, and maybe even with the radicalism of
Mhm.
white supremacy, made the bed for Donald Trump. Um, like we have to say, man, we're not as advanced as we would like to think we are.
Right. Yes.
We're not as advanced.
Yes. None of us. None
Yeah,
of us is. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Point four in Adam Potter's grand scheme
All right.
of how to move forward. Fourth and final point before we talk about our responsibilities. I think that we need to recommit to humility, which is
Mm.
exactly what you were just saying, right, Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I on January 6th. So there were two sets of statements, right, on January 6th, as the riot at the U.S. Capitol was happening. The first leader to come out was President-elect Biden. By the time our audience listens to this podcast, President Biden.
Yes.
Um, and he came out, and Phil, I'm not sure if you caught this, but it struck me so immediately. And the first thing he said was, "I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting." Then he gave
Mm.
his speech about 10 minutes long, and then he concluded it with, "Again, I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting." When's the last time that Donald Trump acknowledged he did anything wrong?
I can't
I
recall.
could be I could be mistaken, but I think it was the Access Hollywood tape that came out in October
Mm.
2016 when he said, "I apologize."
Mm.
And you were just talking about the importance of character.
Mm.
Like, I don't think Joe Biden's, I don't give him, he's not a saint. I
No.
don't, I think he apologized because out of a sense of like not only perhaps some genuine sense of humility, I can be hopeful that there was a genuine sense of humility, but in his estimation, it was politically expedient to say, I'm sorry for being late. I should have been out here earlier. But the man who actually incited the violence, the one who told that crowd to march down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol and, quote, fight like hell, unquote, has yet to say, I'm sorry, or I shouldn't have said those words, or
Mm.
I was really stupid to let Rudy Giuliani on that stage. So, can we all just recommit to some humility? None of us will get it right. None of us, from the trash collector to the farmer to the music teacher, all the way to the president of the United States, none of us will get it right 100% of the time. We will do the best we can, and when we screw up, let's all just apologize.
Yes, yes, that's the
Like,
gospel. That's the
well,
gospel.
yes, and I'm just like when and may I just this is an aside. May I just say to those who would say that holding President Trump responsible, um, who want are against impeachment, against the trial in the Senate, who say that it's going to divide the country further. You know what? They are right. It is going to divide the country further. Um, but they're talking about forgiveness when forgiveness hasn't been asked for.
Mm.
When do you issue a public, I'm not talking about a heart condition now, I'm talking about when do we issue a public statement of you're forgiven, of forgiveness, of absolvement? You don't do that until someone asks for it, when they acknowledge their wrongdoing. So we can't have a conversation about healing and unifying and not dividing and absolving him of his sins until he said, I am the chief of sinners.
Mm. Well, he's not ready. Cause I mean, like that's the thing. Like he's not ready to. He's not. He can't move. You can't move past the that until you are able to admit that
Yes,
that's where I am. I mean, this
yes.
again. I was having the same conversation, and you know, I'm not. Yeah, we don't. I don't. We shouldn't expect our politicians to be perfect. I think I think, but we do. We do. I mean, I think we all want people of substantive character, but that doesn't mean you're perfect. And then maybe you have some major things in your life. But I think if you're honest,
Mhm.
and if you know you see you're working through them, I think people can trust you. But that's all a part of trust. One of the things as I was kind of setting up, um, Joe Biden, they had a remembrance for those that have died due to COVID
Mhm.
19, and that speaks exactly to what you're talking about. We are almost a year into this ordeal,
Yes.
and President elect Biden is the person who is giving the nation this. Vice President, Madam Vice President, said this one thing that I thought was that I thought was so poignant and needed to be said. That we have all grieved individually and maybe even alone, but
Mm.
tonight we grieve collectively.
Mm. Yes.
We acknowledge it collectively.
Yes.
And why? What I kept saying this to. I said this to Wendy. I've said this to Wendy so many times. If Donald Trump could have admitted that coronavirus, one, it's not. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault
Right.
that the virus
Yep.
happened.
Yes.
But if he could at least admitted that this is a problem and let's do whatever we need to do to solve it, he may have been reelected.
Oh yeah.
He may have
Yes.
been reelected.
Yes. Or take some small measure of responsibility. It's
Jesus.
not his fault, but
It's
just,
not. It's not.
you know,
We can't
like,
blame him.
you know, like, okay, you want to say on day one of the CDC's recommendation that we wear masks, that you're not going to? Okay, like, too little too late if he comes out in September or October and says, I was wrong, and now every time I'm in public, I'm going to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be too little too late, but it would have been something. It would have been an
Even better.
acknowledgement, right?
Yes.
It would have been
Yes.
an acknowledgement of how many tens of thousands of people, how many tens of thousands of people's lives could I have saved if I had modeled responsible civic behavior?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that's important to me is, and we record on Tuesday, and we're in January where we remember Dr. Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it is important for us to think, to reflect on him, especially with the overtures and the overtones with the things that went on January
Yes.
6th.
Yes.
You know,
Bill, tell us more about that from your perspective. I'm
you know,
not qualified. You are.
you I come on, don't do that. But yes, I will share. I think I when I discovered, and I hate to say that I discovered that it wasn't something that was, was read to me, or that we always reflected on, but when I discovered Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail, I I just, you could see the tension,
Mm,
because the people he's talking to are not are not secularists, are not,
mm-hmm.
atheists.
Right.
He's talking to white Christians
Yeah. Yeah.
in the South, in Birmingham. And these moderate, and I would say moderate for today, they were people who did not disagree with that, what Dr. King, how Dr. King felt, but thought that, just hold on, just wait a minute.
Mm,
And Dr. King in that letter was saying to them, how long should we wait?
yes.
When is the right time? We like he was in the beginning of the letter. He talks about coming. He's in Atlanta and he comes to Birmingham, and he's in the phrase that everybody says and we all know, right? He says that, why did I come to Birmingham? One, because these are people that I've affiliated with. We have this affiliation, but a injustice anywhere is an affront to justice
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
and and I think I mean, granted, we do the little we can, and we can't we I don't want to burden anybody with saving the world. But just that thought, right? Like, what am like how do I embody that today, that I want to live more justly towards my neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah, and so for me, Dr. King, saying that, and he wasn't a perfect man either. I think
Mm-hmm.
we
Right.
have to say he wasn't a perfect man either, but just what he represented,
Yes.
and his words, they are still vitally important today. Today.
Yes. Mm. So there is another path forward, another path to healing and unity is standing up against injustice
Mm,
wherever,
mm,
wherever where, and that's not a partisan issue.
no, it's not.
There will be discrimination wherever you look. So let's
Mm,
be agents of peace, agents of shalom in our
mm.
midst.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I was listening to, I believe he is the pastor of the church, the AME church, in DC, where, um, previous situation where where they vandalized his church.
Mm,
Um, And one of the things he said, speaking to that shalom part, is that I don't just want shalom for oppressed people, but I want shalom for the oppressor.
Mm, yes.
Because you don't have it either. That is why you are doing what you're doing. Because you don't have it either. And you need to know this peace and the flourishing that comes with that peace.
Yes.
You got me worked up, man.
And I think I don't. I'm not going to take credit for working you up. That's the spirit of
Maybe it is.
God.
Oh.
Phil. So I think it's good. I think totally appropriate and just beneficial for us to talk about this instead of our normal topics, right? Our normal, like interviewing people we find fascinating or talking about music education. But since that is
Mm.
our podcast does not exist to discuss current events. That's a segment instead of
Right.
usually the whole episode.
Yes.
Um, I think it would be beneficial for us to sort of hone this in
Mm-hmm.
on, we are two music teachers, you and I. What
Mm-hmm.
are our responsibilities in this moment, in this rather, this rather perilous moment
Mm.
in our history?
Mm.
You want to go first?
I think one of the things that I think, as I was thinking about this, is the connection to expression of emotion
Mm-hmm.
as musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one thing that you really worked with the chorale with, trying to get them to figure to find whatever that emotion the piece was invoking. And so that connection where you may be disconnected. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and even with not all positive emotions, there could be some sadness, there could be some hurt. And so I think one, saying to my students, not saying to my students, why are you mad? Stop being mad, be happy. Don't say that to your student, right? But
Yeah.
to say to them, what's wrong, why, and then how can I help you? Or if you're lost or if you're confused, what can you do? Trying to
Yes.
help them process the emotions that they're feeling right now. So
Yes. I think, yeah, I think that's true. And I think meeting students where they are is a hallmark of
mm,
good teaching, no matter what the situation or subject.
right.
But, um, students, giving students license for their genuine reactions to uh, traumatic events in the headlines, I think that is really important, what you said. So, amen to that. I think um, facilitating honest conversation and modeling civic dialogue is one
mm,
of our responsibilities as music teachers.
mm,
Um, I think, you know, I have I have been angry over
mm,
at various times in our, you know, at various times in the past 4 years, I can certainly say that. But that's a cop out. I've been
mm,
angry at various times in my lifetime about what's going on in the headlines and about politicians' ineptitude to handle
mm,
what's going on in the headlines. Um, but uh, civil dialogue rarely, if ever, comes from a place of anger. And
mm,
so I do think for the music teachers or teachers of any sort who are listening out there, um, do some own self, do some self reflection um, before you need to facilitate those conversations because uh, it's really hard. It's really hard to detach yourself um, from taking a side in the classroom anyway, regardless, even when your heart is just like, full of dandelions and rainbows. But when your heart is filled with anger, I think it's
Mm.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like maybe couple with what I was saying and what you're saying, just maybe prepare to listen, like and not even so much in that kind of formulaic way of starting a discussion, but when you're just going throughout the day,
Yeah.
maybe attune your ear to that off comment, um,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that the students make. I think that's like one of the things I'm really learning. Like that's where you may learn more about your students, and maybe even an avenue for more conversation. That thing that they just kind of say unguarded. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think um, another thing that I'll say here, and I'm also going to say this in the form of an apology because I have not lived up to this. Um, my One of my really formative teachers was Dr. Clifford Madsen at Florida State, and he had a rule for himself and that he wanted all of us to follow, and that was that our students would never know how we voted. And the
mm,
students would never know how he voted. They wouldn't know if he was a Republican or a Democrat or something else.
mm.
And that's true. I don't know what he was. He didn't give off any hints in the three
uh-huh.
years that I knew him.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the 3 years that I was in his classes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I will say, as a recommendation, that when you are in the classroom, you really should strive for that kind of neutrality. I do think that's a healthy and useful recommendation. Um, and again, I want to apologize for any times I've been in the classroom and not lived up to that ideal. I know that there have been those times. And then I also just want to acknowledge that in the year 2021, that is, um, even when you live up to that standard, it seems difficult to, um, it seems difficult to hide your political biases from the public because, you know, you might have a social media account or you
Mm-hmm.
might co host a podcast.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of my students, if they ever discover this,
So,
I think maybe um I think what I would want to say to that is that is like going back to the idea of truth and opinion, right?
mhm,
That I think yes, as a moderator and a facilitator, we should not, we should definitely be very mindful of how we talk in the classroom because we don't want to stifle
right.
any of our
Yes.
students' voices. And I
Yes.
think that's what you're getting at. But I think even not just saying I'm not going to share my opinions because I don't want to stifle anybody's voices, maybe even more effective to say this is my opinion, but or these are my thoughts, but that does not invalidate your thoughts.
Mm. I mean, I do. Yes, I have certainly been known to voice an opinion. Uh, I don't apologize for voicing musical opinions. That's my job. When I voice a political opinion, though, it really isn't fair to,
Okay.
pardon me, to that. If
Mm-hmm.
we're talking in the classroom, if I were to voice a political opinion, even if I'm even if I'm saying like, oh, this is my opinion and I want to hear you push back on me. In the classroom, there's a power dynamic
Yes.
differential.
Mm.
And it can, even if my intention is to invite dialogue, I think more often than not, it squanders, it squashes
Mm.
dialogue because students don't want to voice an opinion that's contrary to their professor. I mean, even if I'm like, no, this is just my opinion, and I want you to tell me otherwise, but you know that the sky is green. Like, students who know me well, they know that I want them to push back on me,
Mm-hmm.
but that shouldn't be a prerequisite for them to them knowing me well should not be a prerequisite for them to speak up in my class. So that's why I try to, and I fail, and I apologize for the times I do, but I try to avoid expressing opinions that are not musical, are not in my wheelhouse, my area of expertise.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think I definitely um had tried to, yeah, I try to follow that same rule. I don't think my students would know. I mean, maybe they've asked. I think maybe they've asked me. I don't even think I've told them if they have asked me,
Mm-hmm.
because I just don't want to, and also because they're so young too. I think I maybe if they were high school students, maybe I would feel more comfortable having those type of conversations with about my own beliefs and
Mm-hmm.
opinions. But
Mm-hmm.
with my elementary students, I really, yeah, I think I'd want to, yeah, I agree with you, keep that more guarded. So
Yeah. The last thing I want to say, just in terms of responsibilities, um, you know, we are all educators are training future leaders, right? All
mm-hmm.
educators are leaders themselves, and a portion of their class will be in some form of civic or organizational or educational or perhaps even political leadership in their lifetime. Um, I will say, you know, in my situation, as teaching lots and lots and lots of future teachers and future conductors, like an overwhelming portion of the student population I deal with on a daily basis, they are in leadership training, right? Yes, they're
Mm-hmm.
getting a music degree, but in a way a way of thinking about it, it's absolutely the truth is that they are in leadership training, and so I do think that one of my responsibilities in that role is to facilitate conversations about what is good leadership and what is bad. You know, what is not good leadership, um, and the performance of political leaders is potent material for those conversations because they're in the headlines, it's general knowledge, it's things that's in the ether of the society, it's in the culture. We know these people, we have an impression of them, we know what's going on in the news, and so uh, I think I do think it is through that lens of leadership training, it is useful to talk about the successes and failures of people in power. And so, if I were to draw an analogy, and I would always stipulate limited, limited applicability of analogies,
Mm-hmm.
how an analogy is always imperfect. But like, dear choral conductors of the future, uh, it is bad leadership to get up front of your choir who you know adores you. You don't know why, but they adore you anyway. And it's bad leadership to get up and rile them into a fervor and then send them out on stage to to sing irresponsibly. It's bad leadership. If you if you whip them into such a frenzy that they don't behave responsibly in the concert setting, bad leadership to send them out on stage, totally in a frenzy of unbridled, unchecked emotion. Just like it was bad leadership for Donald Trump to whip up his followers into a frenzy and then send them on a crusade down Pennsylvania Avenue to
Mm,
Capitol Hill.
mm, mm, mm,
Your choir isn't going to sing well. If you give, if you talk about fighting like hell, go sing like hell. Let's have concert by combat. Okay, they're not going to sing well if you do that. That's bad leadership. And the people aren't going to behave well at what should be a peaceful protest if you tell them to go fight like hell and to have trial by combat.
mm.
An imperfect analogy, but an apt one, I think.
Great place to end, I think.
It is a good place to end. I feel my voice really protesting that I've used it so much in the past
Okay.
few minutes.
Yes. Well, let's wrap up. So I think one last thing I want to say um, before we end is that we do not need to congratulate ourselves on how well we weep or
Mm.
how deep we lament. Um, I cause because I think true lament we don't you don't reflect on it like that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come back. Oh man, I really felt how sorry I was about that.
Yes.
And so I think we need to be conscious of that as we even try to move past and try to work in to heal the country. We have to be careful of that. So
Yes. Yes. That's a good word, Phil. Thank you.
yeah. So
Anything else for the good of the order?
I think that's a great place to stop.
All right, I agree. Well, dear audience, I'll say bye for now.
Adios.